Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my June wrap up for you. So, in the month of June, it was June, right? Yeah, it was June. Well, you know what? Surprisingly enough, I actually had one of my best reading months this year in the month of June, which technically does not make sense considering the fact that the month of June was probably a literal shit show would be the best way to explain it, honestly. I filmed one vlog basically in June, and it was a vlog that took the span of 3 weeks while I was moving because it was just a super hectic time. However, I still managed to read 7 books in the month of June, and I literally had all of them be 5-star reads except for one of them that was a 4.5-star read. Also, if you can hear what a little pitter-pattering going on, that would be ḽᴏᴏᴏᴅᴅ that I currently have at my parents' place here. So next couple of videos I'm trying out all these different like filming locations in like my parents' place to be like, where can I film, because I don't have a bookcase anymore. I'm diverging as I always do. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Madison tends to talk about a lot of random stuff before getting to the point. Anyway, let's get into my reading month, which I had to put on my phone because I am problematic. Anyway, let's get into my reading month, which literally I'm so happy with it. Like, I cannot believe that like one of the most hectic months of the year of my entire life was like one of the best reading months of my entire life. Like, anyway, I read 7 books in the month of June. 4 of them were adult and 3 of them were new adult. 5 of them I read as ebooks and 2 of them I read as paperbacks. I had 4 reverse harems, 2 fantasy romances, and 1 contemporary romance. And for my page count for the month of June, it was 3,209 pages. Yes, I know, I read 7 books last month and read 1,000 pages less. How did I do better this month? I read chunky monkeys. I literally read like thick ass books. I think only one of the books I read this month was under 400 pages. Every other book I read this month was 400 to 600 pages. Cause why? I don't know. That is just what my life is like. Anyway, I'm gonna get into the books that I read. As per normal, I will start with the lowest rated book and work up to my highest rated read. It's gonna be a little bit different this month because of the fact that basically out of the 7 books I read, one of them was a standalone, 4 of them were part of a series, and then the other 2 were part of a series. So basically, I read like 3 books technically this month. I read books 2 and 3 in the Zodiac Academy series. I read the entire Boys of Belrose series, and then I read The Graham Effect by Al Kennedy. So those are the 7 books that I read this month. I'm going to start with Zodiac Academy, then move on to Belrose, and then finally Graham Effect. So I read books 2 and 3 in the Zodiac Academy series, which is Ruthless Flay and The Reckoning. I did a whole spoiler vlog on these, so if you are interested in my spoiler thoughts when it comes to this series, you can check out that vlog. However, non-spoilery here to talk about them. I'm in love with this series, and it's so funny because I picked up this series basically being like, oh, I don't really think I'm gonna like it, and then read the first book and was like, actually this is really fun, and then read the rest of them and am now obsessed. Book 3 was absolutely amazing. You can kind of see a lot in this series how the authors have improved in their writing, so I feel like I know some people, which has been really interesting. A lot of people say they drop off after the first book, and there are some people who even said, especially over the last video, so that they dropped off after the 3rd book. I think it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, it does keep getting messier and messier, but what I really like about it is the fact that our 2 main characters, our 2 heroines, Tori and Darcy, as each book goes on, they become more and more powerful, and so they start off the series as these Fae princesses who didn't know they were Fae princesses. They thought they were just human until they're whisked away to Zodiac Academy and to like inherit their birthright and find out they're Fae and that they have like all these magical powers. And because they don't really understand any of that in the beginning, you know, they're pretty powerless against everyone else. But as the series is going on, they're becoming more and more badass, and they're also kind of cementing themselves more in the world, and they're making more and more connections, and all the characters are getting fleshed out, which I mean obviously does happen as the series goes on, but I feel like sometimes, especially when you've got the books like the Zodiac Academy books, which are so big, like each book just gets thicker and thicker and thicker, like 400 to 500 to 600 to like, pretty sure one of the books is like 1,000 pages at this point. Like 1,000 pages, like that's a lot, okay? And so I'm never like bored when I'm reading them. They're very like sticky books in the fact of like they're very bingeable. Once you start them, you're kind of page turning page turning them, and they're just like so dramatic and fun. So if you don't know what ᴛᴏᴏᴅ series is about, you're following Tori and Darcy, two human girls who end up finding out one day that they are actually these Fae royals, and that they are the celestial heirs who were supposed to basically take over the kingdom, but they were changelings as children, so they never knew. And in order for them to inherit their birthright, they have to go to Zodiac Academy, and they have to pass all 4 years of university there. However, when they get there, they find out that in their stead, ever since their parents were murdered and they were like yeeted away, that there were these 4 founding families who had basically taken over, ruling the entirety of this world. And these 4 founding families have 4 sons, and the 4 sons also go to Zodiac Academy, and they're considered the heirs currently. And the heirs don't want to give up their positions, they don't want to give up their right to basically to rule this world just because the 2 sisters take the throne. And so they start, kind of a war against these 2 girls to get them kicked out of the academy, to kind of go against them and to get rid of them is basically their entire point. And you're following the 2 girls as they are coming into their powers throughout of it, because they can control all 4 of the elements as well. And people in this world, everyone has like a specific magic, and you're a specific type of like shifter. And so it's also them figuring out which one of those that there are, and kind of learning how to like battle the magics, and also all the romances between everything. It kind of has a bit of an RH feel to it, because where they currently are, it's a slow burn throughout the entire series. And so they do have multiple romantic love interests throughout each of the books, even though there are certain ones that do stand out a bit more than others. And you don't just have Tori and Darcy's POV, you also do have the POV of the 4 heirs, plus some other characters as well. It's a really cool world, because I love how there's so many different like magic systems and creatures and things like that, that there's so much that you're building off that it's just like a really fun, enjoyable time. Like, sure, there could be some people who go into it and like take it too seriously and things like that, but I'm having such a blast kind of like reading it and making predictions. Like, my favorite thing about fantasy books is when I can sit there and like see the foreshadowings and like tab things and be like, oh, I think this is gonna happen, or like, oh, what's going on here? Like, oh, is this for this? And it's one of those book series where, the authors are consistently putting like little Easter eggs in and little foreshadowing notes to kind of like, if you want to pick up on them, you can, which is like what I've been doing. And so, yes. Also, what is up with this piece of light here? I don't know what it is, but whatever. So basically I gave books 2 and 3 both 5 stars, so surprise. Then we've got the entire Boys of Belrose series, which is by Tate James and Jamin Eve. Now this is a White Shoes Mafia rockstar romance, which I know you're thinking like, what does that even mean? I will explain. So you're following Billy Belrose, and in the span of 24 hours, she ends up homeless, broke, and on the run after seeing a murder. And after this happens, she, is trying to escape, being murked for seeing the murder, and she ends up running to a nightclub to kind of get lost within like all the people there. And when she gets there, she ends up bumping into this guy named Rhett, and Rhett ends up kind of offering her a refuge for the night. And he's like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, let me look after you. She says yes. They hang out. He then brings her to hang out with his friends, and when she gets there, she sees her ex. And it turns out that Rhett is actually the lead guitarist for the band Belrose, which is the band that Jace ironically named after Billy, because he hated her so much and he wanted to use her name in his like shot of fame. And so Belrose is one of the top rock groups like at the moment. They're really up and coming. Jace is the lead singer of it, and so when Jace sees Billy with Rhett, he freaks out. They're total enemies, but Billy ends up eventually explaining that she needs to get out of town because she's on the run from someone trying to kill her. And he ends up agreeing to let her stash out on their tour bus while they complete out their tour until they get to New York, and then she can disappear in New York, get a new name, and be fresh again. Obviously, it's a White Shoes romance. She ends up basically in a relationship with the 3 guys who were in the band, as well as another guy. It's so much more than what I just said, but that's basically kind of explaining what the first book is about, because if I keep going more and more, I'm going to spoil it. But basically, the best way I can say is that as each book goes on, more and more of the mafia aspect comes into it. So the first book is probably the least dark and the most focused on kind of establishing all the characters and the rock star aspect of it. And then books 2, 3, and 4 slowly descend into being more and more mafia versus the rock star lifestyle. I gave each of the books 5 stars, except for the last one I gave 4.5. And the only reason for that is just because there were a lot of loose ends to tie up in the last book, and it did feel like they were tied up a little too quickly, and that there wasn't enough kind of explanation and lead up and build up to kind of how everything went down. It just felt very rushed, because there were 3 or 4 like major things that had to get wrapped up in the last book, and it's actually the shortest book out of all 4 in the series too, which showed, you know what I'm saying? And so that did take a bit back for me, but I love the series. Billy was hilarious. The guys are just hilarious. I mean, there's Tate James. Like, if you have not read Tate James's My Choosers yet, I don't know really what you're doing with your life, because she writes the best ones, because they're equally like hella spicy and dirty and really fun, but they also have like so much humor in them and so much banter, and the characters are so well fleshed out. What also stands out to me in this is that you actually get everyone's POVs, which in Tate's regular series that she doesn't like co-write with other people, her books only follow like normally the girls' POV. So it was really cool this time seeing all 4 of the guys as well, and how all their different POVs come into it, and kind of piecing together like the whole mafia plot line of like who's trying to kill who, and who are these different like criminal groups, and how do they all link back to Belrose, and who are the guys in Belrose, like really, like are they who they say they are? And not only that, but Billy obviously does have a history with Jace, but she also has her history with Angelo, who is one of the head guys in the mafia, where this is set as well. And so I just really adored it. It was so much fun. It was definitely a wild ride, and I feel like if you're someone who likes dark romances and Why Choosers, do check it out, even if you don't think you're a fan of rockstar romances, because for the longest time I didn't think I was. And I started picking them back up again, and I was like, these are actually kind of fun. The biggest thing for me, and like if I could probably rate this series, I'd probably give book 3 like a 6 out of 5 stars, only because there was actually a plot twist in the 3rd book that I did not see coming. And I think I've read probably 15 books by Tate James at this point. And because of that, you can kind of tell somewhat of an author's style of like where the books are gonna go depending on that, because you know that author. And the first book ended on a cliffhanger. I was like, oh, that's fine. The second book ended on a cliffhanger. I was like, yeah, I know where this is going. The 3rd book, I got into it and I go, oh my God. I was like, I was gobsmacked. I was so shocked by the reveal that she put in there, and was like, how is she gonna come back from this? Like, what is she gonna do? Like, this is just like, I didn't see this coming. And for me to like be genuinely surprised by a plot twist in a series, especially a 4-book series like that, says a lot. So that's also a thing. If you want to read a book to be like, what the actual F, broski? Well, this is the one for you, and it really is, especially because Billy's pretty badass at the end of the day, and all of her men are amazing. I think, who was my favorite? I think Rhett was my favorite. And then Angelo became my favorite, which was surprising. I didn't like Angelo in the beginning, and then by book 3, he was my favorite, but Rhett was like my boo-boo from the beginning. He was like a big teddy bear, but like protective baby. Oh, I loved him. And then last but not least, we've got The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. This is a total 5 out of 5 stars. This book actually comes out on October 31st, and it was the best. Okay, it is the first hockey romance that I've read in a hot minute. Not only that, but the first contemporary like new adult college romance that I've read in a minute, because I feel like I tried to read a couple last couple months that just, I DNF'd or I wasn't really getting into. And this was the first one that I picked up that I literally blasted through. So I specifically actually read this book during Book Bonanza, during my flight to and from there, which also tells you a lot, because that was a hectic time. My brain was mush. But this book was like my shining light in between all of that mess. Oh wow, this light is like shifting as the video is going on. But if you're not aware, so Elle Kennedy is basically the queen of new adult college hockey romance. She wrote The Deal back in 2015, which is when I started reading her, and I read The Deal for the very first time. And it is just one of my favorite series when it does come to that. And so this book here, The Graham Effect, it's the start of a new series from her called The Campus Diaries, but it's not like a second generation book, even though the first book does follow the child of the couple from The Deal. Okay, does that make sense? But Gigi is Garrett Graham's daughter, and Garrett Graham is like one of the like top hockey players like of the entire United States, basically. And she is at Brown University. She's on the women's hockey team there, and her goal is to make Team USA and go to the Olympics. That's what she wants to do. She wants to kind of get out of her father's limelight and kind of show that she can hold her own. The thing is that Brown University is known for their men's hockey team, and their men's hockey team at Brown used to have a massive rivalry with this other university, but the other university went under, and as a result the male hockey team there ended up being joined with Bry University. And so now Bry University's men's hockey team is basically at war with each other with 2 different factions, and Ryder comes from that other college and is now here like warring against them. And basically what ends up happening is Gigi and Ryder end up coming to a pact because Gigi ends up hearing from Team USA that they are considering her for the, for the team, but that she's got some things that she could improve upon behind the net. Ryder ends up overhearing this and he ends up offering to help her behind the net. And in return, Ryder wants Gigi to put in a good word to her dad about like what a great guy like Ryder is and that he'd be a really great pick for this like camp that Garrett runs. Gigi and Ryder enter into this agreement to help each other out, which then ends up turning into a friends with benefits arrangement. So it's kind of like rivals to friends with benefits to lovers romance. And it's really fun. There's no third act breakup in this. It was the time of my life, like watching the two of them on the ice. It was a bit slow burn. The first spicy scene is about halfway through the book, but the tension between the two of them, like up until that point, was so great. And one of the things that really stood out to me in this book is just, it's what Elle does best, and that's the fact that she makes you so invested in the team. Like all the guys, you're there rooting for them. You want to be their best friends. You want to know them. Like there is like, I think his name was Beckett or something like that. Like he was like the best ever. There was just so much like fun like guy banter, and Elle, in my opinion, really does write some of the best like male POVs that I've ever read. I don't know how she does it, but it literally feels like you're like in the locker room with like legit guys just like shit talking each other and like fucking around half the time, and I absolutely love it. But Ryder and Gigi also had a super healthy relationship, which you don't always see, especially in new adult books. I feel like sometimes because the characters are young and they're in college, they tend to act super immature, and sometimes even too immature, that it kind of is a bit off-putting. Instead, Gigi and Ryder did both have their flaws, but they also were really good at communicating with one another, and because of that, they kind of, you saw them grow as characters, and even though they did mess up sometimes, they talked through it. And I thought that was also really unique and something that I did really appreciate as well. So I did want to mention that because I feel like sometimes you can see sort of like toxic things that do arise, and they literally were so non-toxic, so healthy, and I was like, oh my god, like these two are goals. Like everyone's gonna fall in love with these two people because Gigi and Ryder are one of the best couples I've read all year. Like I ship them to the moon and back again, like 100%. Not only that, but we get a very spicy shower scene in this book. Other spicy scenes that were just delicious that I'm not going to spoil because that would not be fun. And the other thing that I also really enjoyed about this, apart from like that main romance, is because, if you are someone who has read Elle's previous series, like the Off-Campus series, you do get to see like little little cameos of the characters from her Off-Campus and her Briar U series. So you get to see Garrett, you get to see Dean De Laurentiis and Logan and Tucker, and like also the other children that these other couples have had, and kind of how like so much has changed since like the series is like those two series ended to like now, which I absolutely adored. Especially like the fact that we got to see Dean De Laurentiis again. Dean is like my favorite from the series, and I died. I loved him so much. His scene was priceless. Such a classic Dean De Laurentiis scene. Not even funny. Also, by the end of the book, you can tell who the next couple is going to be that you're following, and let me tell you, those two are going to be hilarious. They are enemies to lovers. It's so good. That's all I'm going to say. It's so good. So trust me, you are going to want to pre-order this book because you are going to be obsessed with it when it comes out. If you like college hockey romances or just hockey romance in general, this book like needs to be at the top of your TBR for the rest of 2023, or else you will regret it, okay? Anyway, that is going to be it for my wrap up for June. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye-bye.